Turn the fuel pump off.
What Israel is doing by pointing and saying, see, that's what the Jewish state is doing, so that's what the Jews are like. The other group are Zionists themselves, who want to lay sole claim to what Jewishness is and who lash out violently at Jewish anti-Zionists. There is even a Zionist tendency to look down upon Holocaust survivors and their descendants. Israeli tech blogger Hillel Full displayed this in a recent Twitter post where he says, the weak Jew who was led to the gas chambers, that Jew was left behind, and now there's a new Jew. This new Jew has F-16 fighter jets and Merkava tanks. This assumption that the people killed in the Holocaust were killed because they were weak, and because the ones who killed them were strong, is just absurdly offensive, and mirrors the Nazi rationale for their mass killings, that they were purifying society by killing off its weaker parts. One post from the Zionist organization Jew Belong called descendants of Holocaust survivors sanctimonious for calling for a ceasefire. It also says, I want the goddamn hostages back, as if that idea is in opposition to a ceasefire, when it is in fact the lack of a ceasefire which is endangering the hostages. Hamas recently offered to return all the hostages they have in exchange for a ceasefire and Israel releasing Palestinians it's holding in prison. Netanyahu rejected the offer, which angered the families of the hostages understandably. A ceasefire and the hostages being released come hand in hand. They are the same idea, they are not opposed. Whereas on the other hand, the IDF have shown that they are a danger to the people they are ostensibly trying to rescue. Even if hostages are dropped right into their lap, unarmed and waving white flags, the IDF still might shoot them. So that's the first answer to how the so-called Jewish state would commit such horrible crimes anyway. Zionism and Jewishness are not at all synonymous. In fact, Zionism is often unfortunate. But there's another answer to this question, and this starts with asking a further question. Why do we expect atrocity to be a teacher in the first place? And more than that, a good teacher. So to start off here, I'd like to talk about Maus. So Maus is, on the surface, a Holocaust survivor's tale, told in the form of a graphic novel in which different groups of people are portrayed by different animals. The Germans are cats and the Jews are mice, for instance. Maus was created by Art Spiegelman, son of Holocaust survivor Vladek Spiegelman, who is the principal character in the story. We follow Vladek from the mid-1930s until the end of World War II, and see him enduring life under increasing Nazi oppression, having to live in a ghetto, hiding from the Nazis in a variety of places. Great book.
I remember reading this shit in high
school. Concentration camp. But this story is only part of what Maus is. Maus is also the story of trying to make Maus. The Holocaust narrative is told within an extensive frame story where we see Art Spiegelman conduct many interviews with Vladek to collect material for his comic. The creator is a character in his own work, and we see him struggle with his fraught relationship with Vladek, who can be cold and distant, as well as his difficult relationship with the memory of his mother, who died by suicide in 1968. We see his worries about his own ability to create what he's trying to create, worries about the medium he's working in, and the possibility of narrativizing the Holocaust at all. If I had to come up with a list of 10 works that I think everyone on Earth should definitely read, Maus would be on there for sure. It is a fantastic work of art, if you'll pardon the pun. It's a fascinating historical story on the one hand, but it's also a very honest and intelligent work about the difficulty of fitting real people and real history into narrative structures and character arcs. So 5 stars from me, that's my review. Go and buy it and read it. Anyway, of interest for us today is the character of Vladek. Vladek is smart and resourceful, but also short-tempered, stubborn, self-centered, and frustratingly miserly. Miserly in a way that the in-comic version of Art Spiegelman finds uncomfortably close to the racist stereotype of the miserly Jew. And as a reader, there's an expectation that we're going to find out that his experiences during the war are what made him the way he is. And this is an expectation that Art Spiegelman voices during the frame story of the comic to his father's second wife Marla, before she reminds him that she and her friends also went through the concentration camps and they aren't like Vladek. Maus conveys very well just how supremely irritating the elder Vladek must have been to be around. And for me, at least as a reader, there was a strong desire for an arc, a narrative reason to explain the way he is, to make it make sense. Maus dashes these hopes wonderfully when it reveals that Vladek is also racist, in what to me is the most memorable part of the comic. So Art and his wife Francois are driving with Vladek in the car, and they pick up a hitchhiker who is black, something that outrages and terrifies Vladek, who assumes the hitchhiker must be a thief. Vladek's racism outrages Francois, who reacts angrily. How can you of all people be such a racist? You talk about blacks the way the Nazis talked about the Jews. Vladek dismisses this argument, saying you can't compare black people and Jewish people, and Francois gets nowhere when trying to argue with him. Now I find it especially interesting that Vladek's argument is not that you cannot compare him to a Nazi, but instead that you cannot compare the targets of his bigotry to the targets of the Nazis' bigotry. He doesn't deny that he's talking like a Nazi. His argument is simply that the Nazis' bigotry was unjustified, but his is justified. And the particular way that Vladek expresses his racism here, assuming that black people are thieves, is especially frustrating, because as we see in Maus, Vladek is himself a thief. An earlier section of the comic details Vladek sneaking into a hotel near his house so he can use their facilities free of charge. And he isn't poor or anything, he doesn't need to do this, he's just a cheap bastard. Now on the one hand, Vladek's individual hypocritical racial profile of a black hitchhiker is a minor crime when compared with the totality brutality of the Holocaust and its millions killed and injured and dispossessed. Indeed, this section of the comic comes right after Vladek relates his lowest moments at the Dachau concentration camp, where he got so sick he couldn't stand up and thought he was going to die. But on the other hand, this interaction with the hitchhiker is in a sense the most horrifying moment in Maus, because Vladek was a direct witness to the crimes of the Holocaust. He experienced the bigotry, he saw the piles of bodies, he had the Holocaust done to him, and he still doesn't get that racism is wrong. He experienced the worst sorts of racial abuse and discrimination, and he didn't learn from it. He was made to suffer, but it didn't make him wiser. You don't get a silver lining to comfort you at the end of Maus. There's no moment that's like, well, at least this horrible atrocity taught that one guy a lesson or made him less of a bastard. No, Vladek, frustratingly and terribly, remains a bastard. The great horror here does not come from simply that Vladek is a bastard, by the way. It comes from the reader's desire for suffering to be a teacher. Maus acknowledges your need for narrative resolution and character growth, but then tells you to stuff it, because this isn't a story, it's the Holocaust. A typical Hollywood story would see the elder Vladek witnessing racial discrimination in the States, and then solemnly and wisely proclaiming it to be wrong based upon what he'd learned through his experiences in the war. But Vladek, the real Vladek, isn't the protagonist in a story. He doesn't have a character arc or a narrative, he's just some guy. And the Holocaust didn't make him a better person. And why should we expect it to? It was horrible. In an interview in Meta Maus, a book about the creation of Maus, Art Spiegelman was asked about showing Vladek's racism in this section of the comic, and he replied in part that he wanted to convey that suffering doesn't make you better, it just makes you suffer. Now, if Maus has one lesson to teach, it's this. If atrocity was a teacher by itself, we wouldn't still be killing each other, would we? We'd have packed all that in long ago. I don't like this lesson. Not because it isn't a good one, but because it frightens me. See, what I would like to believe is this, that the internationalism of the internet and social media will eventually fatally undermine all the nationalist rationales for war and oppression, that narrow and selfish national identities will eventually be cast off for new ones rooted in equality for all people everywhere, that over time things such as what are currently happening in Gaza will become impossible because enough people will understand that people are people everywhere, irrespective of location or skin color or language, that enough people will know that there's no master race, no supreme leader, no God's chosen people, no inherently superior or inferior groups of people at all. There's just people, and they're people wherever you go. I would like to believe that this situation is our inevitable future. Surely there must come a point when enough people will see enough atrocity and say, no more. This is what I would like to believe, anyway. But then in one section of Maus, Art Spiegelman is talking to his therapist about his book, and the therapist, who is a Holocaust survivor himself, questions Art's admiration for his father having survived the Holocaust. Would it be not admirable to not survive, he asks. He laments how the victims are blamed for dying, and points out that the best people did not survive, nor were they the ones who were killed. It was random. Any Zionists who consider the Jewish people killed by the Holocaust to be weak still need to learn this lesson. Anyway, then he sighs and says, I'm not talking about your book now, but look at how many books have already been written about the Holocaust. What's the point? People haven't changed. Maybe they need a newer, bigger Holocaust. Anytime some new tragic story comes out of Gaza, or the death count is updated to some new high, my instinct is to think, well, surely now people must see. That was so horrible, that they must get it now. And then I think of this scene from Maus, where the therapist laments that even the horrors of the Holocaust didn't change people. And that frightens me, honestly. It makes me think that the future I want isn't inevitable. Maybe it won't happen at all, and I don't like that much. I don't like not being sure that the future will be better, but I still want to believe it can be. I started this video today by talking about an image that stuck with me, those Israeli civilians on the hill watching Palestinians be bombed for entertainment. And the main reason it stuck with me is because it's not possibly justifiable. It does not matter what was going on or what had gone on in the past. And if I had to make one prediction today, it would be that the images of Israeli civilians currently spending their time blocking humanitarian aid trucks from getting into Gaza will do for many in the next generation what that image of the Israeli civilians on the hill did for me. The people blocking those trucks are intentionally trying to starve children to death. No reasonable person, or no person with a single ounce of moral fiber in their body, should be able to remain on the fence after seeing that. Anyway, in the short term, assuming the worst case scenarios are avoided, when a ceasefire finally arrives, Gaza will need to be rebuilt. Now, I have previously raised money for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, an organization which provides medical care for children in Gaza, and the founder of the PCRF has recently launched a new organization called Heal Palestine, which aims to provide not just healthcare, but also educational support, mentorship, and humanitarian aid. I will put links to both of these organizations below, and would encourage you to make a donation. If you're hopeful about the future, do it because it's the right thing to do, but even if you're a hardened cynic, do it to spite those fuckers blocking the trucks. Every one of them is a pair of hands pushing in the wrong direction, and we need 100 times as many hands pushing in the other direction. I wasn't going to run ads on this video given the subject matter, but I decided to do it and then donate whatever ad money comes in this month across my whole channel to Heal Palestine. Before I go today, I'd like to address the feeling of despair that being witness to horrible events like this can understandably instill in people. It's easy to feel as if there is nothing you can do by yourself. And while there are certain things I would encourage you to do, for example donating to aid organisations, talking to people you know about the issue, going to protest marches where there is one that you can reach, stating very loudly that you refuse to vote for any politician who does not call for a full and immediate ceasefire, all of that is good to do, yes, but we should acknowledge sometimes the individual things you can do by yourself are not ever going to be enough. You can't solve all the world's problems by yourself. But that's a ridiculous thing to expect, isn't it? Nobody can fix all the world's problems by themselves, but we can do it together. So I'll say, if you can, join a union. Your major power in a capitalist society is your labour. This obviously applies to a much broader range of situations than what we've been talking about today, but one of the things that helped bring down apartheid South Africa was collective union action. And while I was editing this video, an Indian port workers union announced they would boycott weapon shipments to Israel, joining many other unions worldwide who have called for a ceasefire and boycotts against Israel. This is good. We want more things like this. Even in places that have forgotten it, this is a power that can be reawakened. You can be John Wick, sledgehammering through his basement floor to rediscover that there is power in a union. I'll also drop a link below to the website of the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions Movement, a Palestinian-led human rights movement that organises to pressure Israel to comply with international law. There's a lot to check out there with many suggestions for things you can do. Living in an individualistic capitalist society might have you thinking that the only powers you have or actions you can take are individual, and so of course you're going to despair and feel helpless when problems are too large for you to solve individually. But the big problems can be solved if we do it together. So every time you start to feel that despair, think instead about how to get organised. Thanks a lot for watching today, folks, and thanks as always to all of my backers over on Patreon, some of whom should be scrolling by right now. Backers get early access to all my videos, as well as a smug feeling of satisfaction watching me overrun my project deadlines. I originally thought this video was going to be half an hour long and be out at least 2 months ago, if you can believe it. So if you'd also like to watch me delude myself, there's a link to my Patreon below. Right, thanks a lot for watching today, folks. I'll see you next time.
What?
Humans are making more waste than ever before. From the food we eat, clothes we wear.
Great Sean vid.
Sir, what exactly are you looking at? How did you figure out the pattern and the flight path? How did you? I wonder. What website and resource are you using? Now the question here to ask is, does he not ask the question, how do these guys know? I'm saying he got it from an app that relies on the flight that he is pointing to as a conspiracy.
145-mile-per-hour winds. Now, before it hit Sarasota, Florida, they're banking on it dropping 25 miles per hour, making it a Category 3 at landfall on Wednesday.
Who's they, sir?
4 p.m., 3 p.m. of when it'll be hitting. But what is up with this flight pattern? I literally have no idea what it's doing. And you do have another one that is going to be taking off shortly, heading in that direction as well. Also, check out all the flights that are happening in the North Carolina and Tennessee mountain. Does anyone have a clue what this is? I talked about it in my live. Maybe I'll come back and talk about it.
Wait.
Mapping.
Bro, this is what happens when you teach the basics of like how to use a computer to a caveman, and then you just let him run loose. Okay, you just let him run loose online. There's no way, like, he's looking at genuinely innovative technological product in front of his eyes. Okay, people shouldn't have to know this stuff. I don't think people should have access to this stuff. Because we are not being responsible. You have to demonstrate basic competency before being able to log on the NOAA website, okay? Or before you start looking at flight patterns. I'm sorry. Can't. You can't. This is insane. What is this? Weird how you're not talking about the criminal Harris NOAA regime activities in Poland. White hats are saying the Biden-Harris regime has built an HAARP-like facility in Poland. German planes have been hanging out in Haiti and Cuba. Start there. Not surprised. As a longtime sub in Florida, I'm glad you're taking the time to cover it. Here's what it looks like right now in St. Pete. You know what it looks like for you? Watching an ad at the top of the hour. That's what it looks like for you, Florida chatters. Because And 3-minute ad break is coming for you. Now, if you no longer want to see those ads,
Got 'em.
then all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $6 or you can do for free with a Twitch Prime. Oh, there it is. I got it. I knew it was coming and I clapped it. Also, I'm certain that chatter literally stole that from another chatter. Same guy. We have spoken to a Marine sniper who reportedly now has 5 confirmed FEMA kills in North Carolina. He has told us it's the fight of our lives. So what I don't understand is when he says he's got 5 confirmed FEMA kills, is he killing FEMA people? Why are the Marine snipers killing FEMA people? That also kind of doesn't make sense, does it? That account has a community note saying Real Raw News is a satire site, and this story of U.S. Marines shooting FEMA workers is not true at all, like all the other stories on the website. Yeah, that's what they want you to think, dude. That's what they want you to think.
They want you to believe,
Yeah.
brother.
This is a satire. It's the real world, clown ass. Wake up! Wake up and smell the FEMA kills. Al Jazeera showed a video showing triangular-shaped object launching and intercepting missiles over northern Israel. The most popular versions of that show the secret deployment of the U.S. Army TR-3B or TR-6 Telos. Are all the sleeping sheep in the chat failing to comprehend the truth? The answer is yes. Seems like the worst case scenario for the landfall is right on Tampa, direct hit. Yeah. Obviously this will change a little bit.
Tampa's.
You know, as it nears landfall. But let's see what this is.
Alexa, did North Carolina put dry ice into the clouds for Hurricane Helene?
From fandom.com. An airplane flew along the rain bands of the hurricane and dropped nearly 180 pounds, 82 kilograms, of crushed dry ice into the clouds.
There are so many people in this world that should never have kids. This is a prime example. Fandom.com is a website for entertainment, movies, TV show, gaming, etc. Alexa is describing content from a movie or a game. This guy, on the other hand, I'm wondering if they did it again for Milton that's coming. Mine heard you and repeated the same thing. They started doing this in the 60s to stop hurricanes. In 83 it was supposed to have stopped. It looks like it made it worse. Dubai does cloud seeding for rain, ...
Yeah.
That is not a hurricane, man. That is not... The average cloud weighs 1 million pounds, 80 pounds of dry ice. Some Americans deserve this. They sit and watch people die and post like this. It's not... The problem is, those are not the people who get punished. And there is no way to ensure that they are the only people that get punished. It's always the people that are poor that get punished. And even then, those guys shouldn't die either. I'm really curious what 180 pounds of dry ice would do. That would be gone in seconds. I can visualize how much that is because I buy it and don't think that would matter at all. Thank God for Tawny, a voice of reason. 40 replies, only 180 likes. My Alexa heard you asked and said the same. 864 likes. Isn't Fandom a website about gaming? If so, are they a legitimate source? Yes, but this is just what my Alexa used. You can search it up on other platforms for more proof. Casey Patterson did not do that. Why do you follow Harry Sasson? He's my goat. Always keep a close eye on your enemies. A close eye. A close watch. Serious question. This person wants to believe it, but is still a little skeptical. Why would they do this? Marjorie Taylor Greene, on the other hand, has an answer. They can't control the weather. This leads me to ask the following question. Is Marjorie Taylor Greene a leftist? Stand-up comedian being a right-wing shitbag on TikTok about Milton?
Get your tinfoil hats ready. I figured it out. So, you know how Hurricane Helene came through and landed in eastern Tennessee and northern Carolina and dumped tons of water and the dams broke. And, you know, people are devastated. You know how that happened? Yeah, I think that was...
I can't even pay attention to this. Climate change is the new COVID. Ask your government if the weather is manipulated or controlled. Did you ever give permission to them to do it? Are you paying for it? Of course you are. I like thinking that Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't like one of those like cynical people that lean into anti-Semitism even though they don't personally believe it, but because their audience believes it, they act like it, they lean into it, and that she is the genuine anti-Semite. Like, she read Protocols of Zion and believed it, And like she had to, because she thinks Jews are this like all-powerful force, she was forced to go to the fucking, she was forced to go to like a Holocaust seminar and then write it.
Estoy feliz de estar acá en casa. Gracias.
Llega a la capital de la República Cristian Leonel Ramírez, jugador del Ferencváros de Hungría, que luego de 5 años regresa a la Tri, su último partido en Copa América en el empate de Ecuador 1-1 frente a Japón. Y la última vez que estuvo por acá jugando en la capital fue el 11 de octubre del 2017 en la derrota 3-1 ante Argentina. Saluda con el potro Pedro Mauricio Muñoz, por acá Cristian Ramírez, que regresa por acá a la selección.
Queer English major on a college campus to look at a seated representative on October 7 being like, they're controlling the weather, they're doing it. We have bigger problems here at the Apartheid Defense League to deal with a sitting congressperson. She wrote an apology letter saying Jews don't have the space lasers, it's the Chinese. Making Marjorie Taylor Greene go to the Holocaust Museum is pretty funny. I went there with my brother when we were kids and we were like, well, this sucks. We already knew this stuff. And then we heard this woman say, oh my God, they couldn't wear makeup. And then realized that's who it was for him.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Another one of his ambitious movie projects. I see all this death and destruction and I realize we have to fund the Department of Homeland Security. My dad literally returned soup at the cafe of the Holocaust Museum, just an old Jewish man yelling about soup while a bunch of Gentiles looked on like, is this a test? That's incredible. Anyway, contrary to popular belief from TikTok and Twitter.
So maybe some of you guys are noticing this, but like,
FEMA is not stealing aid supplies, nor is it stopping aid from being delivered, nor did FEMA reorient funds from FEMA to immigrants or something.
Like if y'all came from my timeline, when the heck did South America get pushed? Look at this!
That's interesting. Let me show you a couple of things real quick of how we're actually in 2 Mandela effects have just taken place. But first, I'll address your issue. Alright, let me open this chest right here. And pull out the Rest board game right here. Let's get this going. Look at that. South America right there. There's America right there. Let's see how long this takes to change, but yeah, there you go. You're right, buddy. Used to be all the way over here. Now let me explain some more of how we're in a second Mandela effect. For the first Mandela effect, people thought he was dead.
Bro.
Wait, what?
Let's see how long this takes to change, but yeah, there you go. There's America right there. Let's see how long this takes to change, but yeah, there you go. You're right, buddy. Used to be all the way over here. Now let me explain some more of how we're in a second Mandela effect. For the first, this going here, in this chest, have just
South America get pushed. Look at this! In the heck?
FEMA to immigrants or something.
Like if y'all came from my timeline, when the heck did South America get pushed? Look at this!
That's interesting. Let me show you a couple of things real quick of how we're actually in 2 Mandela effects. That's in
heck did South
immigrants or something.
Like if y'all came from my timeline, when the heck did South America get pushed? Look at this!
Huh?
That's interesting. Let me show you a couple. Look at that. South America right there. There's America right there. Let's see how long this takes to change, but yeah, there you go. You're right, buddy. Used to be all the way over here. Now let me explain some more of how we're in a second Mandela effect. For the first Mandela effect, people thought he was dead.
Bro, look.
See how long this takes to change. But yeah, there you go. You're right, buddy. Used to be all the way over here. Now let me explain some more of how we're in a second Mandela effect. For the first
He's just an idiot.
Does he think the secret lies with the risk board?
effect, people thought he was dead when he was really alive. They were confused on that. He actually became a president. But what if I told you now, here's the second Mandela effect, that he actually died December 5th of 2013? How there was this movie that came out in 2019 and never mentioned of how his second death actually happened in 2013. But, you know, I just won't get into all of that, or CPT and how all that works. Some of y'all probably don't even know what CPT is. Also, did you know that there's a thought of question of why everyone a week and a half ago were experiencing watching their favorite TikTok creator, and they were glitching for 5 minutes, yet they were responding to questions instantaneously.
Like 30 miles will start ascending.
So we were living in the past, they were the future, but we were...
This has 84,000 likes. Ah, yes, risk. The staple of all cartography.
Staple of all.
This is a good answer. The continents are always moving slowly, drifting apart from each other. That's what they taught us in school. Like he's not wrong, but that's the wrong place to. That's the wrong place to mention it. How do you use the right math equation and arrive at the wrong result? Oh, I'm done. I can't, dude. This is too much. Homeschooling should be illegal, and we really have to make an assessment of the lead contamination.
Bum.
With 140 mile per hour winds, and then 12 hours.
Did you say it's an unpopular opinion? Hurricanes are like, look at the. Since 1851, a total of 14 hurricanes have formed in the Gulf.
Bum. Okay, I need to change the baffling.
There's something about the story of Vietnam. The story of a country that fought and defeated countless Goliaths.
Theirs is a people's army.
Going up against mighty armies, using guerrilla warfare and tunnels.
Your past, which is these tunnels,
is your present.
Is our present.
To fight for their liberation and achieving it.
You see the lotus? The lotus is in the mud, but the lotus is not dirty by the mud. Even though we have been so war-torn, we are not punished by it.
Wow.
While our people are still fighting our own Goliath, we wanted to learn, how did the Vietnamese do it? And what happens once this Goliath is taken down?